Hey y'all, and welcome back to the channel, or if it happens to be your first time here, welcome especially. I'm Sally and it means a lot that you stopped by. I'm trying to film this outside because it's such a beautiful day, hoping that there will not be too much background noise, and I'll do my best in processing to clean it up. So we're gonna enjoy the nice weather and we're just doing a little Q&A. I asked y'all over in the community page on YouTube if you had any questions, would be interested in a Q&A style video, and oh my gosh, y'all delivered. Thank you, first of all, to everyone who asked a question, and I love just the heftiness of them too. Like, we're not messing around. So I'm just gonna start going through them. I'll get through as many as I reasonably can, and if the video starts to get too long, I might just stop it and film more answers as like a separate Q&A that I'll post later. But first question, Deborah asked a few different questions. First of all, how is my schooling going? If y'all don't know, I am currently studying to become a nutritional therapy practitioner. It's going amazingly. We just entered the second term and we're really starting to get into the nitty-gritty, learning all about different vitamins and minerals, how they interact with different conditions, different drugs, also about digestion, which I'm excited to learn more about. And yeah, we're moving and shaking, and I am just starting to work with my first practice client. Thank you as well to everybody who showed interest in that. I really am like overwhelmed by the number of people who wanted to work together, and I hope and pray that some of y'all will be interested in working together once I've officially been able to launch my private practice. And I wish I could work with all of you right now, but it is what it is. So schooling is going great. If y'all would be interested in like a day in the life that's kind of focused on that, let me know. Easy pro metabolic snack ideas. I posted this on Instagram and I think it's a short a while back, but something I love, it's like prosciutto, which you can just have on its own or with crackers. Pretty high protein. But like prosciutto with some mozzarella cheese or burrata cheese. If you can do cheese, you can totally leave it out. As summertime rolls around, some nice fresh tomatoes. You can do basil, you can do arugula, balsamic vinegar, a little bit of olive oil. So you make yourself this little beautiful salad. It is indulgent, but really, really nutrient dense. Been loving that. Literally just like apples and cheese, apples and peanut butter. Not afraid of nut butters. I don't like gorge on them because that wouldn't really make sense, but this isn't a specific question, but I know a lot of people have asked about like PUFAs and why I still eat some foods that are like higher end PUFAs. First of all, I try not to take a black and white perspective or approach to it, but second of all, what I would say is that when they're in whole food sources, they usually have with them the other nutrients necessary to prevent oxidative stress, such as vitamin E. So like nuts, tremendous source of vitamin E, and the vitamin E is helping to combat oxidative stress that would be occurring from the polyunsaturated fats. So you do need some of them in your diet. It's just a matter of how you get them in, and I do my very best to avoid refined vegetable oils. Okay, so pro metabolic snack ideas there too. I love a good mineral smoothie. I do Greek yogurt, or I'll just do a Greek yogurt bowl, but Greek yogurt, frozen berries, or like a frozen berry cherry blend, great source of vitamin C. You can do coconut water, great way to get some potassium in. You can do raw milk or just regular water. And what else do I put in there? A little bit of salt. You can add a little bit of vanilla extract, whatever you like. Cottage cheese is also really good, makes it super creamy. And I don't know if I've shared that in a short, but I feel like it's on Instagram or somewhere. So there are a few snack ideas. Nourishing food tips for all phases of the monthly cycle. Oh my goodness, that's such a big question. I'm gonna leave that for now, but if you're interested in like a cycle syncing video, you can comment down below about that. Am I finished with my cut? If so, how did it go? And tips for people doing a pro metabolic cut. So I am not quite finished yet. I'm recording this. It'll be coming to y'all a little bit later, but it's April 13th right now. We're gonna be going through about May 1st, maybe through that first week in May, and then afterwards, we're probably gonna take about 2 weeks to quote unquote reverse diet. All that means is we're going to be upping our calories slowly to return to maintenance, because you don't want to do it too quickly and like jerk your body around. Also for like, you know, keeping your metabolic rate in check, that's kind of important. So I'm going to be transitioning back to our maintenance calories, and then back into like not tracking. But it's going really well. I definitely feel like I'm at the point now where I'm like starting to get hungrier. It's pretty easy at first. I also like dropped down now to a 750 calorie deficit and keeping my protein high, and it's totally manageable. I can still eat frequently enough, but what I've noticed is it's like, oh, now I have my like afternoon latte, and even if I use my like 2% milk that's still like super high quality, I'm like, this is so luxurious, or like, I'm like, how do I say this? Like carbs that are normal, it's not like a sweet treat. I've noticed that they just like taste extra good. Everything tastes extra good. I guess that's all I would say. But I think I'm doing a pretty good job of still managing hunger and satiety and keeping my hormones in check. I have noticed I've had like one period since I started doing this, and that was the best period I've had in a long time. So I don't really have like much to say about it other than that, but I didn't break out. Yes, I still had cramps of bloating the first couple days, but it just felt like it went really smoothly, and I don't know if that's related to getting rid of the adipose tissue or if it's more related to just eating like extra clean. But we're gonna have a few weeks down the road the like cut reveal video to go over all of that in more depth. Okay, moving down the line, Tessie asked, for those who are out of shape, where would you suggest starting with working out? Just do walking or start lifting weights, short daily workouts, or longer sessions, fewer days a week? Number one thing is going to be, don't overthink it. Just choose what is going to be the most practical for you when it comes to like the short daily workouts or the longer sessions, fewer days a week. Absolutely start walking. I think it is phenomenal for so many reasons to try and take a walk every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes around the block. Not only are you getting your body moving, but you are getting sunlight, and even if the sun's not shining on you, you're still getting the benefits of being outdoors. And our bodies were made to walk and walk and walk and walk. Like that is pretty much the most fundamental movement pattern that we can do. And I honestly think that unless you have some injury that you're like perpetuating by walking too much, the more we can walk, as long as we're recovering, nourishing our bodies, the better. But also absolutely start weightlifting. I made a series on like beginner pro metabolic weightlifting, which I can link the first video of below, and just go check that out, because I go through the foundational movement patterns, and it's split into 3 separate workouts, but you could absolutely repeat the first two times for the week, upper body and lower body. And that's going to help you move through all of the necessary planes of motion, prevent, creating imbalances. And I tried to keep it simple but fun, so it's a good place to start, but it doesn't overcomplicate things. I personally like to do about 3 to 4 weightlifting sessions a week, and they're about an hour a piece, sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. If I'm with my husband, they're usually longer because he loves to take his time in the gym, and I enjoy being with him, but that's not like my style if I'm there on my own. So that's usually how I do it, but you could break it up further more times a week. You can absolutely start with body weight as well. Okay, Tatiana asked, what do you think of the keto diet? A lot of people say it's good to lose weight and increase fertility. I have very strong opinions on the keto diet. Yes, people have seen short-term benefits from it. Yes, there is scientific research backing this up. Long-term is a whole different story. Number one, I have not seen what I would consider to be adequate research on the long-term effects at all. Number two, very, very little of this research is actually done on women, and the female body is drastically different from the male body given hormone levels and the cyclical nature of our bodies. So if you look at what's kind of happening behind the scenes with keto, particularly when it comes to your cortisol, it is putting you in a stressed out state. Bottom line, your cortisol levels are rising, and while short term people might actually notice improved hormone levels, or I think it's like estrogen. Some people notice more desirable levels of estrogen or maybe even progesterone. In the long term, if your cortisol levels are up higher, that's going to drive your progesterone levels down. That's going to allow your estrogen to get higher, and that can lead to estrogen dominance, which can, as we've talked about previously, prevent you from being able to get pregnant if that's the goal. And it can also prevent you from being able to carry a pregnancy to term or even up to implantation, because you don't have the right conditions to do so. So that's just one facet of my thoughts on the keto diet. I just think it puts your body under unnecessary stress. Your body runs on glucose, and carbohydrates are necessary for optimal function and for optimizing your metabolism as a whole. If you want more on that or on intermittent fasting, again, let me know. I could talk for hours about it. Okay, Kristlyn asked, what is the best way to plan out meals while keeping them simple and low cost? I love that question because realistically, I'm on a budget. So many of us are going to be on a budget when it comes to this kind of thing. And while we have this idealized view of how things could be sourced, we usually can't afford to get everything perfectly. And my motto is do not let the perfect get in the way of the good. First recommendation is just to sit down and make a list of your priorities when it comes to the food that you want to spend money on. So for me, top priorities are going to be getting grass-fed beef because research has shown that the nutrient profile on grass-fed beef is tremendously different from that conventionally raised beef. And the negative health effects that are associated with red meat are all pretty much tied to conventionally raised grain-fed beef. So I 100% want to put the money in to get grass-fed beef whenever I can. Same with pasture-raised eggs. Even if a dozen eggs is like a few dollars more expensive than conventionally raised eggs, there's still such an affordable choice of protein, and you get so many more nutrients from grass-fed eggs. Dairy also probably comes in just below eggs for me. If I'm going to get dairy, I want it to be high quality, and fortunately that's pretty easy to do because we have access to so many different cheeses from different places. So even if you're not straight up drinking milk and you don't have access to raw milk, you can get high quality cheese. And then chicken is honestly, regardless of how you square it, a pretty low when it comes to nutrient density, and it's harder to mess up in terms of nutrient profile. So while I would love to get 100% pasture-raised chicken all the time, that's something that I am often going to compromise on and get conventionally raised. Certainly would get that conventionally raised before I would get beef conventionally raised. So make a list of priorities. And something that is really helpful to me for keeping it simple is literally just planning out, okay, what are my proteins going to be for the week? What are my veggies going to be for the week? I'll leave that more flexible because when I get to the store, I can find what looks good, find what's in season, and what are my main carbohydrate sources going to be for the week. And then I have a few other staples, like I'll get coconut water. I make sure we have like oats on hand for oatmeal, frozen berries, and all of those things that I just like to have on hand. But I will usually pick out 3 or 4 proteins. Right now I've been prepping them in bulk at the beginning of the week. It's just been a lot easier, especially as we are still tracking our macros. And then you can also prep your carbs ahead of time. You can throw sweet potatoes in the oven. You can, roast regular potatoes, do rice, whatever main carbs you want. And just, I know that technically nutrient density is highest in vegetables if you cut them up right before you eat them, but if you're not going to eat your vegetables, if you don't cut them up ahead of time, then it is 100% bringing them home from the store, prepping your veggies, cooking what you're going to cook, and just being able to incorporate that into meals throughout the week. So just keep it simple. Proteins, carbohydrates, lots of veggies, and I like to choose protein sources that have healthy fats mixed in with them. And then I, of course, am cooking with those things like olive oil and with grass-fed butter. So there's that. Let's see. The Mind, Body, Soul of Homemaking asked 10 things to do to start Pro Metabolic for beginners, unless you've already done that video. So I have made a series on Pro Metabolic for beginners. It's like a 3-part or 4-part series breaking down, like, first focus on this, then here are the next steps, and then after you've done that, here are kind of like the elements we're going to layer on top. So if you search like Sally Hand Pro Metabolic for beginners, you should be able to find that. I could kind of do a refresh full video if y'all were interested, but let's talk just like top 2 or 3 items right now. Number 1, literally just focus on balancing your blood sugar by balancing your macronutrients. So we always want to make sure we're pairing protein, carbs, and fat. As I hinted at a minute ago, I like to make sure I'm pairing my protein and my carbohydrates. And as long as I'm doing that, and I'm eating whole food sources, cooking with those healthy fats that we talked about, I'm going to be getting in healthy fats as well without layering on like an abundance of excess calories. So balance your macronutrients. We're going to eat within the first ideally 30 minutes to an hour of waking up. That is going to prevent our cortisol levels from surging, and that is going to help with our hormones and our metabolism tremendously. Even if you're not hungry, get a little bit of food into your body, and that really will jumpstart your metabolism for the day. With that is avoiding coffee on an empty stomach, which I know can be really hard, but even if it's just having a few like gelatin gummies, having a little bit of yogurt. I've done a whole video on like easy ways to get protein into your body, or easy early morning meal ideas for people who are having trouble like with their appetite in the morning. Just pair that with your coffee, and it's gonna again help prevent your cortisol from going crazy. Other thing that has to do with your blood sugar balance is going to be, especially as you're starting out, eating about every 3 to 4 hours. This is going to help you build resilience, and as your body becomes stronger, your metabolism becomes stronger, you might be able to space out those meals a little bit further, but that is a really tremendous place to start. And I just think it's really easy to major on the minors and get into the specific foods we should be eating, and this supplement or X, Y, or Z. And if you don't have like the foundations in place, those really aren't going to do as much for you as they could. Beyond that, broadly, I would say focus on eating high quality whole food sources. Don't get too caught up. I know, controversial, but don't get too caught up in getting organic. I think personally that's more relevant when it comes to meat than when it comes to vegetables. I know you guys can come at me, but just wash your vegetables well. You don't need to spend all the money in the world to eat well. Just eat whole foods and balance your blood sugar, and those would be my first steps. Okay, I think I'm going to do one more question that ties nicely into the above, and that's from Haley. Haley shared that she seems to really pack on weight with pro-metabolic eating, specifically when drinking adrenal cocktails, so she's cut those out. She wonders if I have any snacking or eating tips to avoid gaining loads of fat. She is struggling with her weight already, particularly with visceral fat, is trying to shed it in a healthy way, but her health is suffering from gaining even more. She is doing some weight training, doing some low impact cardio, some incline tread, and then Susan also kind of followed up on that. She said she's interested in this as well. She's coming from a background of low carb, low calorie eating, and just going to 1,600 calories a day has caused more weight gain. She looked up her TDEE, and for cutting it says 1,300 calories. So, first of all, this can be incredibly frustrating. My heart goes out to people who are in this situation, dealing with this. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question because this is already getting kind of long, but I think this ties in nicely to what we were just talking about. It's from Haley. She says that she is really packing on weight with pro-metabolic eating, specifically when drinking adrenal cocktails. So she's cut those out. She wonders if I have any snacking or eating tips to avoid weight gain. She is heavy already, and she has a lot of visceral fat, but her health is really suffering with gaining even more weight. So first things first, I would say pro-metabolic is not about specific foods that we need to be adding in. Like, yes, that is something that can be helpful. We talk about adrenal cocktails because they're a good way to supplement your minerals. And I will say there are easy ways to make adrenal cocktails that are incredibly low calorie. But it goes back to what we were just talking about, not getting started by adding all these things in, but just prioritizing balancing your macronutrients. Haley shared that she's trying to balance her macros, but it seems like that's probably not first priority. I would 100% make that first priority. Along with tracking, you're not going to know how much you're actually eating unless you're willing to track. So you can use an app like Chronometer, like MyFitnessPal, and calculate your TDEE. I made a whole video on the real reason you're gaining weight a few weeks back, so I encourage you to go watch that video until we can calculate how many calories we need to be eating and track to make that happen. We don't have any solid evidence to go by, or tangible goals to work towards, so it's really easy to, I think, gain weight if you're just adding things in but not actually tracking.
So prioritize macronutrient balance. Don't get caught up on the specific foods you're adding in. Determine your TDEE and track what you're eating so you actually know. Watch the video I made a few weeks back on weight gain. And the last thing I want to say is, again, not about specific foods. Rather, let's think about switching out less nutrient-dense foods for more nutrient-dense foods instead of just consistently layering things on top. So instead of maybe just adding an adrenal cocktail, especially one that's really calorically dense, maybe it has coconut milk or a lot of orange juice in it, on top of everything you're already eating, could that be swapped out for like the chips that maybe you're having as a part of your afternoon snack? Maybe that's not, just switch it out for something that's already in your diet that's not serving you, is what I would say. And don't get caught up in like layering copious amounts of grass-fed butter on everything. Like, yes, grass-fed butter is a healthy fat source, but if you add tons of it to your diet unnecessarily, then you're getting way more calories than you're accounting for. So in terms of like a lower calorie adrenal cocktail idea, if that's something that would be helpful, you can do just coconut water with some lime juice, a little bit of salt, still getting that vitamin C, still getting that potassium, that sodium, and even just straight up coconut water. As long as you're getting enough vitamin C through whole food sources and you are getting enough sodium in your diet, I think potassium is what people usually struggle the most with getting enough of. I suppose in a way this is a different question, but it was piggybacked on Haley's. Susan says she's interested in this as well. She's coming from a background of low carb, low calorie eating, and just going to 1,600 calories a day has caused more weight gain. She looked up her TDEE for cutting and it says 1,300 calories, which that's very frustrating, Susan. I'm sorry that that's something you're dealing with. The number one thing I would say or ask is, can you just check in honestly with yourself and ask, like, is weight gain going to be the worst thing in the world for you? I have no idea what your circumstances are, what your body fat percentage is or anything like that, but most likely if you are coming from low calorie eating and your TDEE is that low, then you are someone who is a pretty small person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but especially if you're not holding a ton of muscle mass, yes, your TDEE is going to be very low. So I would say probably in your case, it might not make the most sense to track if that's going to like mentally get in the way, and weight gain does need to occur, or you just kind of need to let your body recalibrate. The number one priority is probably going to be restoring your metabolism. So focusing again on frequency of meals, on pairing your macronutrients, on eating enough. And I would also say, as you build resilience, increasing your activity level. As long as we're recovering well, as long as we're fueling our bodies well, we don't need to be afraid of exercise unless there are extenuating circumstances, or it's a really, really high stress time. Adding in weightlifting, especially if weight gain is going to be occurring, would be probably the best thing you can do, as long as, you know, you're nourishing yourself enough, and especially for eating enough protein, because that's going to help you build muscle. And even as you're gaining weight, it means that we're going to be gaining muscle and less fat, and that is going to make you feel better, and it's also going to increase your metabolic rate. So anyways, I know that can be a really frustrating situation to be in. Just be honest with yourself about whether weight gain is really going to be the worst thing. If it's not going to be healthy for you mentally to track, and restoring your metabolism is the priority right now, then I would just focus on eating enough in other ways. It's like, I'm always encouraging people to track, but it's not a one size fits all situation, and you just have to do what's going to be best for you, especially if gaining weight is what needs to happen. Okay, well, I'm going to end it here with my neighbor's dogs barking in the background, and I will pick up with more questions a few weeks down the road, but thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any further questions, comments, concerns. Until next time, bye y'all.